Last Thursday, President Trump threatened to hold up funding for the Postal Service, citing mail-in voting as his reason. So now top Democrats in Congress have called on Postmaster General Louis DeJoy to testify before Congress a week from today. He has been criticized for his cost-cutting measures to stabilize the Postal Service.
The U.S. Postal Service was born during the American Revolution, making it one of the oldest institutions in our country. Centuries later, the USPS is in a funding crisis mixed up with partisan politics and the upcoming election. So how did we get here? First off, the funding problem is not new. The post office doesn't get any tax dollars. It relies on the sale of postage and other products and services, so it really depends on people sending stuff through the mail to continue to operate. And people send a lot less mail than they used to. By the early 2000s, mail volume was going down as the internet became the main way for a lot of people to communicate. The post office also faced more competition from private services like FedEx and UPS. Then, in 2006, Congress passed the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act. That law requires the USPS to pre-fund future retirement benefits, which cost the agency about $5.5 billion a year. The law also made sure the price of stamps could not go up faster than inflation. So those increased expenses, combined with less mail and less revenue, means the post office is losing a lot of money every year. Last year, it lost $8.8 billion. So how has the government tried to fix it? Many Republicans, including President Trump, have talked about privatizing the post office. During the recession, the Postal Service started closing some post offices, eliminating jobs and reducing hours to save money. Recently, Postmaster General Louis DeJoy made changes like getting rid of overtime and late mail deliveries to cut costs. But that's caused delivery delays, which DeJoy calls unintended consequences of the new changes. Last week, the USPS warned election officials in Oregon, Washington, and other states that some mail-in ballots might not make it in time. With more people expected to vote by mail this year than ever before, some believe these delays are political. And that's how we got here.